but why don't we get things going? And Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett is going to kick us off this evening. So I will go ahead and unmute you here, Joe, or ask you to unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I want to take this special opportunity. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, helping an important cause, and that is the campaign of Woody Myers and Linda Lawson. As I have said on several occasions, Woody truly is uniquely well qualified to be our candidate for governor in a day and age when public health issues and issues of racial disparity and inequities are at the very forefront of our community and national conversation. So as mayor of Indianapolis, I'm pleased to be supporting Dr. Myers and the entire Myers campaign. I look forward to his tenure as our governor, and as far as I'm concerned, Election Day can't come soon enough. So I'm pleased to be a co-host tonight, not only supporting both Woody and Linda, but co-hosting with my good friend Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And after ending Mayor Pete's groundbreaking presidential campaign, you know, Pete could have rested on his laurels, and he could have waited out the time until November. Instead, he stayed committed to this historically important election and founded Win the Era PAC. Win the Era supports candidates who are lifting up the issues facing this and subsequent generations. They support candidates who are committed to building a sense of belonging in our country, who are running pioneering campaigns, and this is certainly one of them. The PAC supports people who propose and support meaningful, bold policies, and who model the values and the spirit of our campaign. Nobody embodies that mission, in my humble opinion, more than Dr. Woody Myers, the very first African-American gubernatorial candidate from either major political party in Indiana's history. So, in support of Woody and Linda, I want to take this opportunity to personally thank Mayor Pete for everything you're doing, Pete, for candidates all across the country, including candidates names happen to be Biden, Harris, Myers, and Lawson. You're a leader in every sense of that word, in body and in spirit. And Indiana remains so proud of you, Pete. So to all who are joining us tonight, it is indeed my honor to be able to introduce my friend, your friend, and a leader for our country, Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Well, thanks so much. First of all, thank you, Mayor, for your leadership. I've learned a lot about governing and politics, and campaigning, and everything in between. In the years I've got to know you, and I know Indianapolis is so well served to have you at the helm. When I left the mayor's office at the end of last year, I thought then that it was the most demanding job in government, and it was hard to believe how it could become any more high pressure. The stakes could go up any more in that key local leadership role, only to have 2020 throw all of what it has at you and at the Circle City and we're all so thankful that that you're navigating this, and I'm so grateful for what you've done, both in leadership and what you're continuing to do by joining today to support Dr. Myers and Linda Lawson and everything that you're doing to help us build up our party. So they're thrilled to be with you. And I see so many faces, people who were kind to me over the years and who I've gotten to know as we were first in my unlikely race for state treasurer, and then everything we went through in seeking the office of mayor of South Bend. And I'm equally thrilled that I got a lot of friends from Indiana who are here in Common Cause, but also a few great friends and supporters from around the country who I'm so thankful to you for joining us and the chance to introduce Indiana to you a little bit, because shame on us if we allow the current vice president to be all people know about the politics of our home state. We have produced wonderful, extraordinary leaders, and one of them is our next governor, Dr. Woody Myers. Now, if all I knew about Dr. Myers was what I saw on paper, I would already believe, as the mayor put it, that it's hard to think of somebody, it would be hard to invent somebody more suited to the moment we're in. When we're beset with twin crises of racial equity, including racial equity when it comes to health, and public health more broadly. When our White House and our governor's offices around the country can't seem to decide whether they're going to settle questions of science and medicine by turning to scientists and doctors. And to see Dr. Myers, again, just looking at him on paper, and his education at Harvard and Stanford, a circumstance not to be held against him, his statewide leadership in, I had to get that in, sorry, his statewide leadership in public health, the fact that he, in addition to having been one of the leading figures in medicine, produced in our lifetime in Indiana, also somebody who was already such an important part with his historic campaign of Indiana Black history and his lived experience as a Black leader, as well as his medical and intellectual experience. All of that qualifies him. But I want to make sure I get across that I know him for more than what you see with his extraordinary resume or his amazing track record of accomplishments. He's somebody who made time for a very unlikely character with an unpronounceable name, talking about why we should care about the office of state treasurer of Indiana back around 2009, 2010. He's somebody who has repeatedly, generously mentored and supported candidates right and left when it didn't benefit him, but he knew that it benefited this state that he loves and cares about so much. I have seen his heart for service. I have seen his passion for looking after the vulnerable. And so I'm thrilled that he decided to take this step, even though we couldn't have known when he launched his campaign just how much circumstance would make him the man for this moment. And so that's why I'm an enthusiastic backer of the Myers-Lawson ticket, and why I can't wait to call Dr. Myers our governor. Look, if you told me when I was running for president that the stakes were going to go up, buckle up, things are going to get even more demanding, I would have wondered how that was even possible 6 or 8 months ago. But here we are in a country that is, by the kinds of measures that we usually use to size up developing countries, falling back. Widespread disease, social unrest, questions around our ability to function as a democracy, political violence, things we never thought we'd be facing around us in our time. But here we are. And to me, this is a resounding answer to our friends who may have said things like, look, I don't much care for the president or this or that leader, but it doesn't really matter who's in those offices, does it? Well, it does. It's a matter of life and death. And that's something that I know Dr. Woody Myers understands. And as you know, I am all in on making sure we get new leadership in the White House. Matter of fact, just a couple hours ago, I was with Vice President Biden for an event like this, just after he delivered an extraordinary speech in Pittsburgh that really speaks to the moment too. We've got to get new leadership in the White House. But one thing that our Republican friends never did was make the mistake of treating the presidency like the only office that matters. So many of the decisions that are deciding whether or not we will in fact turn this corner and open up a new and better era are the decisions that cash out at the local level, where we got leaders like Joe Hogsett, and at the state level, where we need leaders like Woody Myers. Decisions about education, decisions about public health, decisions about our economy. Yes, the decisions where racial justice will in fact come or remain elusive. Now's the time, and this is the level we got to be paying attention to. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm proud to introduce my friend, Dr. Woody Myers.
Oh, Mayor Pete, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I do appreciate it. But first, let me say a word about Mayor Joe. I don't remember when Joe and I met. We've known each other for so long now. It had to have been at some meeting or some event that happened a long time ago. We've had a number of conversations over the years about a variety of things, and I've certainly seen him in action in a lot of different settings, but none as pressing and as important and as I would imagine nerve-wracking as the last 6 months, especially here in Indianapolis, my home city. He's done a phenomenal job of guiding us through some turbulent waters, and those waters indeed have been very, very turbulent in the last few months. But nonetheless, we are emerging. I think hopefully stronger than we've ever been before. We've got some ways to go, but our economy is shaking, but it's coming back. And with Joe's leadership at the top, Indianapolis will recover quickly and become that vibrant center for conventions, a center for new ideas and how to manage a city of this kind of complexity, center of new thoughts about racial justice and how to achieve it more quickly, about inclusion and diversity. I just know that Joe will continue in that mode, and as my mayor, as the mayor of my hometown, and I just am enormously pleased that he's been a friend and he is a sponsor of this event tonight. Thank you very much, Mayor. I do appreciate it, and to my friend Mayor Pete, who I knew before he was Mayor Pete, he was candidate Pete. Who was traveling the state, if I remember, with City Council President Vop Osili, who was his sort of running buddy when Vop was running for Secretary of State and you were running for a treasurer of our state. Boy, that doesn't seem like as long ago as it was. And you look none the worse for wear, sir. You've maintained that youthful glow over this past decade. But with what an enormously impressive first run for President of the United States, with an incredible rollout up in South Bend that I'm sure is the envy of all of the other candidates, and will be a model for candidates going forward as they think about how to announce themselves to the world. He did it with style, with grace, and he did it well. And he certainly changed the discussion that the candidates had during his time as a presidential candidate, and brought key issues to the table that otherwise would probably not have been talked about very much. One that I definitely would like to mention, Pete created something called the Frederick Douglass Plan, where he, before anyone else, recognized the importance of dealing directly with solutions for problems of racial injustice. And that plan covered healthcare, it covered the economy, it covered a number of areas. And Pete, I don't know if I've told you before, but I read it cover to cover. And I just felt, wow, if we just had everybody adopt this, we didn't need to really discuss it anymore, because he really nailed it from everything I could see. And I just hope that we continue the discussion that he initiated around those very important ideas, and that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris adopt it in part or whole, or or add to it. Just know that the principles that he put forth are the ones that we absolutely should follow, and certainly we are going to continue to talk about as a part of this campaign here in Indiana over the next 63, 64 days as we move forward towards November 3rd. So thank you again, Pete, for your willingness to be a part of this evening tonight, and to bring a number of your friends along for the ride, both your Indiana friends and your out-of-state friends. Your work for us on our behalf is very much appreciated. I know that everyone on this Zoom realizes the importance of the times that we are in. That's why you have been active participants in the body politic. You've been active contributors to a variety of campaigns, local, state, and federal, and that you are involved with us this evening. And I know that many of you are not stationed here, positioned here in the great state of Indiana. By the way, if you'd like to move, we'll help you. We've got room, and we'd love to have you. I'm sure that the mayor of Indianapolis, the former mayor of South Bend, can make some referrals and get you a deal. But nonetheless, we are just so enormously appreciative of folks from around the country who are joining us this evening. I know that COVID-19 dominates the discussion, along with racial injustice, and those two issues have just taken over. As the mayor said, that 6 months ago, no one knew what COVID-19 was, or no one had heard of George Floyd. And today, those names just dominate almost everything that we see and we hear and we live on a daily basis. We know that this country is forever now changed as a result of what happened in Minneapolis, of what happened in Kenosha, what happened in Louisville. It's what's happening now that's being recorded in cities across our nation with the cell phone videos that are being taken that are for a new generation of people, showing in graphic detail what many of us have experienced for decades. But there was no visual record of those experiences. I've experienced many different types of aggression, of discrimination, but fortunately, I was able to, with the help of many others, get my degree in biology, to move on to medical school, become a physician, to begin to take care of patients in the intensive care unit setting, to ultimately be appointed to Commissioner of Health for the state of Indiana under a Republican governor and then a Democratic governor, and then ultimately to become the Commissioner of Health for New York City before entering the private sector, where I've had a number of leadership roles in a variety of companies and enterprises and on boards throughout the nation and countries outside of the United States. I bring those experiences with me, and the experiences of being an African American, fourth generation on one side, third generation on the other, from Indiana, to this job, to this process of basically interviewing with the citizens and the voters of the state to become the next governor. I've got 64 days left in that interview process before the election, in which I will talk in continuous detail about my experiences and how I think that we can change, we should change, we must change our thinking with respect to these decades-old issues surrounding race. We have to be willing to talk about it. We have to be willing to collaborate. We have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations, but we also need concrete actions that change the way we approach our criminal justice system, with implicit bias training, with far more sensitivity towards the maneuvers that sometimes can harm or kill before a person has even been arrested, when there are many other techniques that can be made available. We have to change what we decide, how we decide what crimes are worth putting someone in jail for and imprisoned. We know now that putting someone in jail for simple possession of cannabis doesn't make sense anymore. We need to change that in our state. We need to decriminalize simple possession and therefore reduce the population in our jails and ultimately our prisons. And we need to, in my view, move towards medical marijuana as a first step as we consider our options going forward. Those are some of the issues that I know are important to a number of communities, but have particular impact on the African American community in our state. These crimes that we're seeing on the nightly news just have to stop, and we have to address them, and we have to do so directly. With respect to COVID-19, our state has seen some very challenging numbers in recent weeks. In fact, in the last month, we probably had more cases than at any single point during this entire pandemic. I'm very worried about that surge that seems to be continuing. If we look at the numbers from the last few days, I'm worried about the positivity rate. That's the number of positive cases of all the people that are being tested. I'm very worried about schools that have made, in many cases, what I believe to be a premature decision to go back to in-class settings when, in fact, distance learning for the time being would probably be a much safer option. I'm worried about the decision-making that's been made, or decision-making that hasn't happened at the state level and at the federal level that has impeded our ability to respond appropriately to this global pandemic. We should have done a lot of things differently, including how we manage the issue of masks, how we manage the issue of schools, and how we manage the issues of testing. Still today, testing remains a difficulty, as well as personal protective equipment. And the impact that this pandemic has had on our economy has been enormous. So I see today where the reports are that the unemployment in our state technically is in the 8%, 9% range, up from a 3% number months ago. But that 8 or 9% certainly does not represent the true damage that's been done and the damage that could come in future months and in future years if we don't act far more aggressively now than we've done in the last 5 or 6 months. We know that unemployment number doesn't represent the people that had 2 or 3 jobs that are now down to 1 or 2 jobs, unable to meet the needs of their family, but technically employed. People that used to be able to get overtime that don't get it anymore, and people that have had to take salary cuts. The economic experts are telling us that we are at the perhaps end of the beginning, but not nearly we're close to the middle or the end of the impact that this is having. And I suspect very strongly that we're going to be at least a year or 2 further away from having coverage of a vaccine, assuming a vaccine is approved, than people would like. It's going to be with us for quite some time, and so we need to get far more adjusted to wearing masks, to the changes that COVID-19 has forced upon us, and we need to respond more aggressively from an economic and job development standpoint. All of these are challenges that we talk about every single day. These are challenges that other states have as well, but here in Indiana, it's pushing us in a direction that we've just not ever been pushed in before. And I feel as if I have the experience, the background, the energy, the enthusiasm, and the willingness, of course, to take this on. Should about 1.25 to 1.3 million voters agree on November 3rd. I know that this is a candidacy that has been, from many perspectives around the state, improbable. I'm not a politician. I'm a physician. I'm a former health commissioner. I've had a number of positions in the private sector. So running for office is not something that I've spent a lot of time doing. But in the past 14 months, I've had a chance to hear from people in rural areas of our state, in urban areas and suburban areas. I've heard moms talk about the needs for their kids that aren't being met. I've heard folks worried about their jobs, leaders worried about economic development, folks that can't get broadband internet services that absolutely vitally need them for their jobs, for healthcare, for everything else, and the state has lagged behind in providing it. I've heard these problems, and I know that we can create better solutions, and I'm ready to go to bring the collaborative skills that I learned as health commissioner to the table, to bring the complex problem-solving skills I learned when I became an intensive care unit doctor to the table. As I said to some of you earlier, Indiana needs surgery. And I've scrubbed up my hands. I've got my gloves ready to go. We need to get our state on the operating table, get through this period of time, and then produce a much healthier state as a result of the actions that will take in this coming year. So with that, thank you very much, all of you, for participating in this Zoom tonight. I know that some questions have been submitted, and I'm going to depend on Jack to provide a few for me, representing the diversity of folks that are on our Zoom tonight. And I look forward to seeing you out on future Zooms, since the traditional campaign trail is not going to probably be available to us, and getting your support to make this race successful. Thank you.
All right, everybody feel free to submit questions in the chat box, and I'll pick some out to ask our hosts. We'll start with Pam Locker from Evansville asks, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm worried about the current atmosphere resulting in deaths on both sides. Is it time to stop the demonstrations? If so, what comes next? How can we really start to change things? And I'll go ahead and unmute you, Pete and Joe, so that you can chime in as well if you'd like.
Well, perhaps I'll start, and then I certainly would love to hear from both mayors who deal with these kinds of questions every day. One has to remember that there is very little overlap between the people that are lawfully demonstrating, protesting injustice, and then the people that are committing crimes, frequently in proximity to, but usually after the demonstration. And you don't want to get those two groups mixed up. I think that the right to protest is part of what why this country was created. But at the same time, we have to be ever so vigilant to make sure that we protect lives and property, and that means that our law enforcement has a very challenging role to play. But let me let the both mayors offer their views, because they've certainly dealt with this on a regular basis.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And for my part, we can be very clear that there is no place for violence or destruction, and say that without in any way diminishing the reason there is this outpouring of anguish, which is hundreds of years of accumulated injustice and racism in our country that is not some quaint historical artifact, but something that shapes lives, shapes incomes, shapes health in very direct and measurable ways. A lot of communities have begun characterizing racism as a public health emergency and treating it in that way. And we can't go on like we've been going on before. No, look, right now we've got national leadership that thrives on chaos, that wants it to be as if all there was to this outpouring of concern was the handful of cases that they'll point to where it's escalated into violence, but with not only no plan to bring us together, but also no plan to deal with the underlying issues, and in many ways actively making it worse. That's why you've got to have somebody in these offices with that instinct to heal and unite. And look, we've got to do both and, right? We've got to deal with the moment, and we've also got to deal with these underlying issues. And we can't just put them off as something that'll take its course, or act as if you can just erase racist policies and put a neutral one in there and expect everything to get better on its own. That's the tough conversation we're having as a country, and leadership makes all the difference in the world in whether that takes us to a constructive place or whether it takes us into the kind of chaos that we're seeing in a lot of communities right now that really does endanger people on all sides.
Yeah, and Mayor Pete, I just simply add to what you and Dr. Myers have already said. Here in the city of Indianapolis, we are undergoing a radical reformation of the way law enforcement officials protect and serve, and including some of the topics that have already been discussed: implicit bias training in our training academies, reforming our use of force policies in meaningful ways to include proportionality and other concepts that for far too long have not been part of that review. But I would say, as a final matter, one of the most important things that we are doing here as this conversation continues is engaging the citizens more than ever before. The truth is, for too many law enforcement agencies, including one here in Indianapolis, the police have largely been empowered to police themselves. And the time has come that good citizens who want to provide a meaningful change and reform can step up and become members of the Use of Force Review Board, or to become members of the Police Merit Board. We have a premium on citizen involvement that I think is going to help Indianapolis change in very, very significant ways.
All right. We've gotten a few questions about the opioid epidemic that remains ongoing amid the coronavirus pandemic. And Krista Painter asks, when are we going to start treating it like it's a public health emergency?
Well, we should have been treating it as a public health emergency, because it truly is. And the opioid our substance use problems in our nation have evolved. I would say 4, 5, 6 years ago, they were primarily related to overprescribing. A lot of changes have been made in recent years with respect to that issue. So this crisis has shifted more to the importation of substances that are synthetic, like fentanyl, primarily brought in through Mexico and other non-U.S. locations. And one of the major trade routes, unfortunately, for those substances happens to be Interstate 65 and Interstate 70. We are the crossroads of America for both good purposes and not so good purposes in this case. And so I just know that we have to make sure that medically assisted treatment, we call it MAT, is increasingly available for those that truly are addicted to an opiate. That therapy is the best that's out there today, and I believe in it, and we ought to make it far more easily available through our healthcare system. In addition, behavioral health. We don't have enough behavioral health providers in Indiana at either end of the spectrum, from the psychiatrists to the nurse practitioners to the social workers, all of whom play an important role, school nurses. We need more of them. We need more of them working on this part of the public health spectrum of issues, because in spite of the fact that we don't hear as much about opiates every day like we used to, COVID has taken over as the primary health issue. It's still a big problem.
Got a question here, particularly well suited to Pete, from Marika Metcalf. She asks, given today's polarization, what is the best way to discuss issues with those on the right? Is it even possible to change a mind?
I think so. I think it has to be. First of all, I just want to acknowledge Krista's question and thank Vanessa for reminding us it's International Day of Recognition for overdose deaths. And I know that's touched a lot of people around our state and some people on this call, and we have to do better. And it's one more reason why I think Dr. Myers' health expertise is so important. As to converting or engaging with our friends from across the aisle, I believe in this passionately. Just the other day, I was on Fox News making the case for Joe Biden. Maybe not an automatically friendly place to be, but Look, we've all done it at our dinner tables with our family members, with our neighbors, especially when you live in Indiana, right? I know there are some communities so deep blue that sometimes my friends there have trouble believing that Trump supporters and Republicans actually exist. But of course, when you're a red state Democrat, you know all too well how important it is to have those conversations. And the amazing thing is, people aren't as locked into those party loyalties as you would think, especially now, especially at a moment like this. Think of it this way. If you're a conservative because you believe in traditional family values and you see the president of the United States, you got to ask yourself some questions. If you're in the habit of voting Republican because you're a person of faith and you thought that's what people of faith ought to do, and scripture about taking care of the least among us rings in your ears, or you think about the call out of any number of religious traditions to seek leaders who walk in the way of humility and decency, and see what we got now, you start asking questions. There's a poll out today that showed that members of the military, service members and their families, are coming to change their political party in a way we haven't seen, I think, in my lifetime. And so what all this adds up to is an enormous opportunity. No, you're not going to win everybody, but we know it can be done here in Indiana, where there have been a lot of Democratic as well as Republican governors in my lifetime. And it starts with just a respect for where people are coming from, and a recognition that people may not all be getting the same information. But if we can reach people with not just with facts and numbers, and our numbers are and facts are more convincing than theirs, but just a more human touch, I think that makes all the difference in the world. And I've seen that instinct in Dr. Myers too. We should leave no vote on the table. And by the way, there's some people making up their mind how to vote. There's some people making up their mind whether to vote. And that's where I think about some of our friends maybe on this side of the aisle, maybe further to the left, or young people who've just gotten cynical about the process. And we've got to get that message across, especially the young people, that, hey, the longer you're planning to be here, the more these decisions that are about to get made, irreversibly shaping the next 50 years, the more you have at stake in those decisions. And this is your moment of maximum power to do something about it.
All right, and I'll read one more question here as we begin to wrap things up. We get closer to 6:30. Dr. Eve Higginbotham asks, what will it take for people to trust science? Is this an added value for Woody Myers' candidacy? It has to be.
What will it take for people to trust science? It'll take new leaders in Washington, D.C. and in many state houses nationwide, who understand the importance that science has had and will have to solution of some of the world's toughest problems. You know, I look back at the days when I was a medical student many years ago, of what we could and couldn't do to help patients. And I remember having patients in the coronary care unit for whom we had no medication, no therapy, no surgery. We basically provided them with the painkillers and with some what we called inotropic support to help their hearts beat a little bit stronger, but had none of the interventions that we have today. Whereas those patients that spent many weeks in the CCU, in some cases today, will be discharged from the emergency room because we have much better ways to diagnose and to treat, and many of them will have their disease prevented altogether. Mortality from disease in America has been cut by over a third because of developments that were inspired by scientists and biomedical researchers doing the hard work every single day of figuring out what it was going to take to provide a new approach, a better combination of drugs, a new set of rules with respect to timing of procedures. All of those things have just been enormously important in bringing us forward to a time when HIV/AIDS, which used to be a lethal disease, has become a chronic disease. If you do what your doctor and your nurses tell you to do, you could live almost a normal lifespan with that problem. So we've got to have people at the top who are pointing that out on a daily basis, who are emphasizing the fact that science is absolutely essential for developments that will solve the problems of world hunger, that will reduce the problems of pollution, and that will improve human health as well. It's something that is true. The story can be told, but there are folks today that just don't want to tell it, and for their own political and other reasons, and that's why we need new leadership.
All right. Well, I think that about brings us to an end. I want to thank everyone for joining tonight, and particularly Mayor Hogsett and former Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And Woody, I'll leave it to you for final comments.
Well, again, I want to thank both mayors as well, and their time is enormously valuable and precious, and for them to spend it with me and you this evening is just an incredible testament to their service to their fellow citizens and their friendship with me. And I just I will be enormously forever grateful for that, and to you all who've joined us tonight. You have many things you could do with your evening hours, and I'm glad that you're spending them with us. The fact that you're on this Zoom absolutely is evidence that you care about our city, our state, and our nation, and that you want things to get better, and as do I. So I'm rolling up my sleeves to get things done. I hope you in your own ways will do that as well. I just know that the next governor of the state of Indiana will have an opportunity to move our state in a much better direction. And if you are willing to help us to make the change that we need, I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to get in there and every single day offer the leadership that I know it will take to get our state headed in the right direction in so many different areas. So thank you once again, and please have a wonderful, pleasant evening, and hope to earn your vote, to earn your support over the next 64 days.
Thanks everyone for joining. Take care.
Thank you. Here you go.